Welcome to Sophie and Jumong, Part 40. Remember to subscribe and tap the notification bell. Next part drops tomorrow. The heavy doors of the operating room swung open slowly. For a moment, there was only silence. Then the clicking of cameras and low murmurs surged like a wave. Sophie stepped forward, her face pale beneath the soft glow of the ceiling lights, surgical cap still in place, her hands bare now, her scrubs wrinkled with effort. A nurse hovered nearby in case she needed support, but Sophie stood firm. She paused briefly, scanning the crowd of reporters, flashing cameras, and hospital staff clustered like petals around the entrance. The tension was thick, but it didn't unnerve her. A deep breath escaped her lips. She held the moment. "I want to thank God. The Almighty," she began, voice steady, "for granting us a successful surgery today, for guiding my hands, for keeping little Ho-Jun stable, for strengthening the team that worked beside me." Her voice didn't shake, but there was a reverence in it, like a whisper across a cathedral floor. "We were simply instruments today. The miracle belongs to Him." She bowed her head in silent prayer, lips moving with barely a sound. Then she looked up, eyes calm. "Please," she said gently, "remain respectful. A child is recovering. His mother is still trembling from fear. Let's remember why we're here." The questions came quickly after that, a surge of voices trying to outpace one another. Sophie remained still, only lifting a hand slightly. A young woman near the front, holding a blue press tag, stepped forward with a nod from the media officer. "What made you decide to take such a high-risk case?" she asked. "Most of your colleagues turned it down." Sophie didn't hesitate. "Because someone had to say yes. When I saw the scans, I knew it would be difficult, but I also knew there was a path, a chance. And when you're a surgeon, especially one trained in pediatrics, you don't walk away from a child just because it's hard. You lean in, you fight. You do everything in your power to keep that mother from losing her son." Another reporter pushed forward, this one with a tighter lens camera on her shoulder. "Dr. Lee," she asked, "you're 4 months pregnant. Was it ethical or even responsible for you to be in that operating room at all?" There was a brief pause. Sophie folded her hands in front of her. Her voice, when it came, was calm, but edged with conviction. "I understand the concern," she said. "It's a valid question. But I made this decision after consulting with medical ethics staff, my obstetrician, and my surgical team. I didn't take it lightly. No one pressured me. No one forced me. I assessed the risk to myself and to my unborn child. I knew my limits. I also knew that if I waited, Ho-Jun would not survive. There are times in life where duty doesn't ask if it's convenient. It just asks if you're willing." More cameras shifted in closer. A third question came. "Was this your first time encountering such a severe malformation in a child's heart?" Sophie nodded slightly. "This specific combination, yes. But I've trained for years in complex congenital heart surgery. Every case is different, but the principles remain the same. Clarity, precision, prayer, and never giving in to fear. We didn't just perform a surgery today. We opened a door for other children with similar cases to be seen, studied, and treated with hope." A man in a brown blazer raised his voice slightly. "There are rumors that the hospital is using this story for publicity. Was the media presence requested by the administration?" Her jaw tightened just a little, but she remained poised. "This story wasn't meant for headlines," she said. "It started quietly, behind closed doors. A mother begging for help, a child near death. We did not send out press releases, but the moment people heard, they responded. That tells me something powerful. It tells me the world still cares. And that's not something I'll apologize for." The last question came from the back. A young male reporter, barely more than a trainee, but his voice was clear. "Dr. Lee, he said. What message would you give to others? Families, doctors, students, watching all this unfold. Sophie's eyes softened. To families, don't give up hope. Even when every door closes, knock one more time. To doctors, don't forget why you chose this path. This work isn't about prestige or politics. It's about standing between life and loss. And to students, your hands may be untested now, but your heart is what matters most. Keep learning. Stay humble. Walk with courage. And know that every child's life is worth the fight. There was a pause. The silence lingered, this time not from shock, but reverence. Then she turned and walked away. That night, the City of Seoul slowed to a whisper. Rain had begun to fall gently over the rooftops, soft and rhythmic like a lullaby. Sophie had changed out of her scrubs. She was now wrapped in a soft cotton robe, her feet bare, her belly slightly visible beneath the fabric. She moved slowly, deliberately, each step measured. The weight of the surgery lingered in her muscles like a quiet ache. Her hands, though washed and clean, still remembered the feel of the surgical thread, the resistance of tissue, the softness of a child's heart. Jumong followed close behind her, watching every movement with quiet attentiveness. He didn't speak much that evening. He had prepared her favorite evening tea, ginger with a slice of lemon and a bit of honey. He placed it on the tray beside the couch and gently helped her lower herself onto the cushions. She sighed as she sat, closing her eyes, allowing her back to rest. "You did enough today," he said softly. "Let tonight belong to peace." Sophie nodded, smiling faintly. "It already does." He took her feet into his lap and began rubbing them gently, his thumbs moving in small, slow circles. She leaned back, letting her head rest on the pillow. Her eyes wandered across the room. The candles were lit on the table, flickering beside a bowl of steamed rice and pumpkin stew. A book she hadn't touched in days lay beside it, a reminder of normal things. The television played on mute. Every station still showed her name. Every headline carried her face. But inside this space, there was no camera, no noise, just him and her. Later, as the tea cooled, Sophie picked up her phone and called Mama. It was nearly midnight in Namibia. But her mother answered immediately, as if she had been waiting. Her face appeared on screen, wrapped in a colorful scarf, eyes filled with pride. "You are well, my daughter?" Mama asked. "I am," Sophie said softly. "He made it. The child. He lived." Mama smiled. "I watched everything. Even from here. You spoke with such calm. I thank God for your hands. I thank God for your strength. I'm tired," Sophie admitted, "but I feel full inside. Not just with this child," she said, touching her belly, "but with purpose. You are doing what you were born to do," Mama said. "Now let your body rest. Let the child inside feel your stillness. And pray before you sleep. Prayer is still the key." "I know, Mama." They laughed softly. When the call ended, Sophie leaned into Jumong and closed her eyes. She slept quickly, deeply, wrapped in his arms, while the rain tapped gently on the window pane. Morning came with light gray skies. The air was cool and fresh, and the city below was just beginning to wake. Jumong was already in the kitchen, preparing breakfast: toast, eggs, fresh fruit. Sophie walked out slowly, her robe tied neatly, her hair pulled back. "You're up early?" she said, yawning. "Couldn't sleep," he admitted. "Too many emails." He didn't add that 3 hospitals had written overnight, or that 2 media channels had requested interviews. None of that mattered right now. He placed the plate in front of her and poured the tea. They ate in comfortable silence. Then Jumong's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and frowned. "No name," he said. "Encrypted ID, foreign number." He answered cautiously, switching to speaker. A voice came through, low, thick with emotion, tinged with a Middle Eastern accent. "May I speak to Dr. Sophie Lee, please? It is urgent." Sophie straightened. "I'm here." There was a short silence. "You are talking to the King of Jordan," the voice said. "I am calling you as a father." Sophie and Jumong exchanged a glance. "I watched your surgery," the king continued. "I saw your calm. I saw your hands. My son, Hamza, is 14. He is my only son. He cannot breathe properly. His trachea is being crushed. Our doctors, they don't know what else to do." Sophie's voice was calm, but her eyes were already sharp with focus. "Your Majesty, what has been diagnosed so far?" "A double aortic arch," the king replied. "It wraps around his airway. He struggles to eat. Last night he collapsed briefly. His oxygen dropped. The doctors revived him." "Is he stable now?" "Yes," the king said, "but barely. They say he has 1 or 2 days at most." "Send me his scans," Sophie said. "All of them. Also, if there is a video feed, I need to see him breathing." Jumong moved quickly, grabbing his laptop, opening the secure line the king's aide sent. The screen showed a pale, thin boy in a hospital bed, tubes in his nose, his chest rising in shallow, labored breaths. Nurses moved around him. The call had ended, and Sophie lowered the phone with slow, thoughtful hands. Her face was calm, but her eyes had shifted. The softness of the morning was gone. In its place was the quiet steel of purpose. She sat in silence for a moment, staring at the window as clouds drifted lazily across the Seoul skyline. Beside her, the tea had gone cold. Jumong didn't speak. He reached across the table and held her hand. Sophie stood slowly, her palm resting on the small swell of her stomach. "They're bringing him," she said softly. "The prince. He'll be here within 2 hours." She picked up her phone again and began reviewing the preliminary scans that had come through. She spoke quietly, more to herself than to Jumong. "It's worse than they thought. The vascular ring is almost complete. He's not getting enough air. They've been lucky to keep him alive this long." Jumong watched her, then excused himself from the table. He stepped out of the apartment and called Dr. Min, one of the most respected senior surgeons at Seoul Medical Center. The man had been there for 25 years, older, precise, and trusted by nearly everyone on the surgical floors. Jumong kept his words few and clear. "Dr. Min, this is not a formal briefing, but you need to know something urgently. The King of Jordan has reached out to Sophie. His son, Prince Hamza, is being flown in now. He's 14, in respiratory distress, double aortic arch. Sophie has reviewed the scans. She believes it can be repaired." There was a silence on the other end, then Dr. Min said, "I'll inform the surgical board immediately. She can meet us once she arrives. We'll treat this like any emergency case, with clarity, with precision, and with protocol." "Thank you," Jumong replied simply. Inside the hospital, things moved quickly but respectfully. Dr. Min gathered the department heads: cardiothoracic surgery, pediatric ICU, anesthesiology, trauma care, respiratory. Most of them had heard of the prince's case in whispers, but not the full weight of it. Dr. Min stood at the front of the hospital's main surgical conference room, pointer in hand, images from the prince's scan rotating slowly on the central screen. He didn't raise his voice. "A 14-year-old male, Crown Prince of Jordan, en route to us now," he said. "Double aortic arch, tracheal compression, current airway collapse. Flight team is maintaining stabilization, but they have warned us. This boy could code in the air." A few doctors exchanged glances. "This is not about politics," he continued. "This is about a boy whose body is failing him. He arrives in 90 minutes, and we operate immediately if he crashes." They nodded. "Dr. Sophie Lee will lead," he added without pause. She was directly requested by the royal family after her last successful operation. But let it be known, this is our case, not hers, not mine, ours. We go in as a team. She will be first in, but we will all be in the room. There was no objection. An hour later, Sophie walked quietly through the back corridor of the surgical wing, a clipboard in hand, her white coat fluttering gently with each step. The hospital staff watched her pass. Some nodded, some whispered, some only looked. She greeted every nurse she passed, her words warm, her smile tired but real. She entered the conference room where the team had assembled. She paused at the door. Dr. Min looked up from the imaging board. The room turned to see her. She didn't speak immediately. She stepped forward, bowed deeply, and then met their eyes. "Thank you for preparing everything," she said simply. "And thank you for allowing me to work beside you." Dr. Huang, who had once doubted her during the Hojun case, gave a small nod of acknowledgement. Sophie continued. "This is a rare defect. You all know that. The compression is close to the carina. Any mistake could block the airway permanently. I have a surgical approach in mind, but I will defer to your counsel as we proceed. I don't assume leadership because of recognition or reputation. I am here as your colleague." Dr. Yoon, the anesthesiologist, leaned forward. "Have you mapped the arch orientation?" Sophie handed out her sketches. "Yes. Based on these, the left arch is dominant. We'll go through a left thoracotomy. I expect to isolate and ligate the right arch. We need constant airway visualization." Dr. Min looked over the plan. He tapped the side of the scan. "You've considered possible tracheomalacia?" "Yes," she said. "If the trachea collapses after ligation, I'll insert a stent or consider tracheoplasty. I'm preparing for both outcomes." There was a pause. Then Dr. Min nodded once. "Good. Then we'll support you. You lead the chest. I'll assist on the vascular step. Dr. Huang will be on standby for bronchoscopy." Sophie bowed again, lower this time. "Thank you," she whispered. At 10:47 a.m., the alert came through. The jet had landed. The surgical team dispersed, already in motion. The bright lights of the operation room cast sharp white shadows across steel tables and masked faces. The scent of sterilized metal, alcohol, and tension filled the air like vapor. Every corner of the room was alive with purpose, wires hanging from machines, the rhythmic beeping of vital monitors pulsing like a heartbeat. A camera, discreet but present, was mounted near the ceiling with a wide lens, streaming everything live to a secure royal connection in Amman. At the center of it all lay Prince Hamza, 14, sedated under anesthesia, his young frame dwarfed by the surgical table. His chest rose and fell in labored waves beneath the blue surgical drape. Even unconscious, his face was drawn, skin pale, lips slightly blue-tinged from oxygen deprivation. A soft oxygen tube ran beneath his nose, the beeping beside him already starting to warn. Time was not his ally. Standing still beside the table, Dr. Sophie Lee closed her eyes. The gloves on her hands gleamed under the operating light. Her white coat had been replaced with fresh scrubs, pale blue, tucked neatly around her slightly swollen belly. She did not speak to anyone. She didn't need to. In that moment, she bowed her head slightly, her lips barely moving. "God of mercy, you made this boy. You see what I cannot. Guide my hands. Let this not be my knowledge but yours. Let this boy live. Give him back to his father." The surgical team stood silently. Even the monitors seemed to hold their breath. Sophie's eyes opened. "Scalpel," she said quietly. The nurse, without hesitation, placed the instrument in her hand. Sophie stepped forward. She made the first incision just beneath the rib cage. The blade glided through the skin, and a thin line of blood rose along the cut. The retractor was engaged quickly. As the tissue parted, steam from warm internal organs met cold surgical air. They had entered the thoracic cavity. Inside the boy's chest was a maze of pulsing vessels and pinkish-gray organs. Sophie's eyes narrowed, scanning the structures. The heart beat slowly but steadily. The trachea was visibly compressed, pinched between the malformed double aortic arch, like a rope drawn too tight around a pipe. "Suction," she said, as fluid gathered around the pericardium. The suction tip whirred. Dr. Yoon stood beside her, guiding the assistant as the left arch was exposed. "Clamp ready," Sophie murmured. But near the far side of the room, Dr. Kwan and Dr. Yu leaned close together, their gloved hands folded, tension already curling between them. "She's moving too fast," Dr. Kwan muttered behind his mask. "If she clamps the arch too early, the trachea could collapse." Dr. Yu shook his head. "It's not standard, not even in simulations." Their voices, low as they were, found the edge of Sophie's hearing. She didn't look up. "Doctors," she said, voice firm, slicing through the room like a second scalpel. "I need full focus. You can speak later. If you're not aligned, I'll ask you to step out." They froze. The nurse's hand hovered with the clamp. Sophie extended hers calmly, waiting. The silence pressed in. Then Sophie spoke again, this time sharper. "This boy's life is hanging on minutes. If you cannot follow my lead, leave the operation room now." Dr. Yu nodded and stepped back. Dr. Kwan hesitated a moment longer, but when Sophie met his eyes directly, he followed his colleague and exited. Without a word, the tension in the room tightened, then snapped back into order. "Clamp," Sophie said, and it was placed in her hand. She reached the left arch. The blood vessels were pulsing rapidly, red and full. Her hands moved with care as she isolated the structure. Then, without tremor, she applied the clamp to stop blood flow. "Cutting right arch," she said. The blade entered, and a stream of dark blood spurted up toward her gloves. The suction team was ready, drawing the fluid away as fast as it appeared. The heart monitors beeped quickly now. A monitor flashed red. "BP falling, 62/30, the anesthesiologist called out. "Oxygen saturation, 71% and dropping." One of the nurses gasped softly. The boy's heart was slowing. Sophie's hands didn't tremble. Her voice rose, clear and firm. "Clamp the distal arch now. Get the vascular blade." The nurse moved to fetch it, but froze for just a moment, uncertain which tray it was on. "Nurse," Sophie said sharply. "Now!" That one word cracked through the moment. The blade was in her hand within seconds. She sliced through the arch, quickly and decisively. A gush of blood followed, a wave of pressure release, and for a moment the trachea collapsed inward like a straw pinched in half. The suction team cleared the field. Sophie pressed gauze, then reached for the suture needle. "Patch ready!" she called. Her own breath was tightening. The monitor alarmed again. Beep, beep, beep. Flat line rhythm. "Oxygen dropping to 65.